The ever-elusive Sunday stream. Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. So I got a job, as I mentioned before, and that happened to be having a meeting at 2 o'clock yesterday, which meant I kind of had to rearrange some things. And, well, here we are. We're doing it now. Also, you may have noticed I changed some of the music. Actually, I'll post a link to what music I'm using in the chat. It's just a little compilation on YouTube that I quite enjoy. Yeah, we're here. I just thought it might be time to change it from the Animal Crossing music, considering this series starts to get a little, unsettling at times. But yes, we're here. We're going to... Oh, that's, I should maybe remove that text. We're talking about, Case Colorless Green by qntm. We're continuing our deep dive into the Anti-Memetics Division hub. And we're talking about part 4 or 5 today, Case Colorless Green. So, I say, let's just get right into it. Last time, as you may remember, if you read both last week's and this week's article, you'll know that there's a lot of crossover. Last week, we met Lynn Marnus, who was the founder of the original Foundation Anti-Memetics Division. And, well, things didn't end very well for him. Some sort of weird spider-like thing came out of his eye and sort of destroyed him and obliterated him from all memory. Which, you know, we've all been there, but clearly something more is going on, and he described it as like, there's no way to fight this thing. It's the most dangerous thing they ever faced. It wiped out multiple versions of the Anti-Memetics Division. And this week, we find out a little bit more about what this thing is. The SCP in question is SCP-3125, which, unlike the Aleister Gray stuff, that is actually its entry on the SCP main list. You can go to SCP-3125 and read the article. I'm not going to in this video. I may discuss it later, but if you want to go do your own extracurricular reading, feel free. But SCP-3125, all it says on the outside, to summarize this article, there's an SCP named 3125. Someone has to go down into its containment chamber once a month, and then leave, and no coherent information can leave the containment unit. So something is very not right about this thing. And Paul Kim is immediately worried about it, of course, because he's Paul Kim, and he's dealt with shit like this. I don't like the idea of you routinely exposing yourself to a cognitohazard so dangerous that we can't even write down the reason, or we can't even write the reason why we can't write it down, Kim says. What do we gain from that? It's just a breach risk. But she goes in, and we find out, as we go in there, basically, SCP-3125 is, for all intents and purposes, public enemy number 1 for the Anti-Memetics Division. And I say public enemy, but that's kind of a misnomer because, well, no one knows about it. And we find out more. 3125, we get, Marion Wheeler goes into this place, finds a bunch of diagrams, finds notes of hers that seem desperate, which she doesn't like that at all, because she likes to be in control of everything. And then she finds a video taken by her. There's a video playing. Marion Wheeler in the video is seated and looks unfamiliar in a way in which takes the one watching a moment to put her finger on. Not exhausted, not sick, not physically injured. She's seen herself that way before in the mirror. This woman's willpower is gone. She's beaten. Now here's the important detail, and the detail that you may already be figuring out if you remember last week's events. You've guessed already that 3125 is not in this room, she says. In fact, this is the only room in the world where 3125 is not present. It's called inverted containment. 3125 pervades all of reality except for volumes which have been specifically shielded from its influence. This is it. This is our only safe harbor. This room represents the length and breadth of the war. Every competent anti-memetics research project finds 3125's fingerprints sooner or later. It manifests all over the world in thousands of different forms. Most of them aren't even anomalous. Some of them we have already cataloged separately in the main database. A very small number of them are even in containment. Impossibly virulent cults. We discussed star signals, the basically anomalous Scientology. Broken arithmetic, weird formula that starts to break down all other arithmetic around it. Invisible spiders as tall as skyscrapers. Think Lynn Marnus. People born with extra organs which nobody can see. Secret organ under people's ears. Don't worry about it. That's the raw data. Those manifestations are troublesome enough to deal with in their own right. She begins drawing a shape which isn't visible from the camera's perspective while still talking. But once you get a little further down the road, you start to see a pattern emerging in the data. You need to have the training in memetic science, but once you have that training and you have the data in front of you, it only takes a little extra effort to arrange those data points in conceptual space and draw a contour through them. Those data points are points on 3125's hull. Those manifestations are the shadows it casts on our reality. You link 4 or 5 different SCPs together into a single shape, and you see it. And it sees you. When that happens, when you make eye contact, it kills you. It kills you, and it kills anybody who thinks like you. Physical distance doesn't matter. It's about mental proximity. Anybody with the same ideas, anybody in the same headspace, it kills your collaborators, your whole research team, it kills your parents, it kills your children. You become absent humans, human-shaped shells surrounding holes in reality. And when it's done, your project is a hole in the ground, and nobody knows what 3125 is anymore. It is a black hole in anti-memetic science, consuming unwary researchers and yielding no information, only detectable through indirect observation. A true description of what 3125 is, or even an allusion to what it is, constitutes a containment breach and a lethal, indirect cognitohazard. Do you see? It's a defense mechanism. This information-swallowing behavior is just the outer layer, the poison coating. It protects the entity from discovery while it infests our reality. And as years pass, the manifestations will continue, growing denser and knitting together until the whole world is drowning in them, and everybody will be screaming, "Why did nobody realize what was happening?" And nobody will answer, because everybody who realized was killed by this system. Do you see it, Marion? See it now. So that's 3125, the escapee, as Lynn Marnus described it. 3125 is the connective tissue between every other anti-meme. It is the thing that caused them all to manifest in some way or another. It influences them all. It is the perfect anti-meme, not because it can't be perceived, but because once you perceive it, you may as well never have existed. As was clear at the end of the last article, Marion forgot who Lynn was. Marion did not know who Lynn was after she wiped her own memory. He was gone. She forgot who had founded the Anti-Memetics Division. It wipes people from existence. She feels dwarfed by it. She's encountered terrible, powerful ideas before and subdued them. But what she's picturing now is on another order of magnitude from what she knew to be possible. The other wheeler presents her finished diagram. She's drawn a mutated, fractally complex, grasping hand with 5-fold symmetry. It has no wrist or arm, just 5 long human fingers pointing in 5 directions. At its core, there's a pentagonal opening which could be a mouth. I suppose I should stop at this moment. You may be noticing all the 5s. 5 being a very important number in all of this. I mean, SCP-055 was contained in a 5 by 5 by 2.5 meter container. And those of you who are more mathematically inclined, 5 to the 5th power is 3125, which is what this SCP's number is. There is a group of interest in the SCP universe called the Fifth Church, or Fifism as a broader religion. Fifism is what was responsible for that Scientological, kind of that anomalous Scientology cult. It's never been confirmed, but a lot of people speculate, a lot of people believe that the entity that the Fifth Church worships is SCP-3125. Now, why they aren't obliterated by it, I'm not sure. I think it might have to do with one's intent, where the Foundation is trying to contain it or stop it, whereas the Fifth Church is worshipping. But I don't know. And I don't know that we'll ever get a firm answer, because, well, this is SCP. There is no one answer. And that's sort of by design. But I just wanted to stop and give some more context in that regard. The Fifth Church deals with a lot of anti-memes, a lot of things like that are like inherently anomalous, but to do with their weird kind of new agey religion. And it seems like, one of the bands based on Fifthism made a song called Cosmic Starfish. Those 5-limbed cephalopods. It doesn't take much to draw connections. Not that that's the correct answer, it's just an answer, but I thought it would be worth bringing up. How do you fight an enemy without ever discovering it exists? The Wheeler in the video asks. How do you win without even realizing you're at war? What do we do? 7 years ago, there were more than 400 anti-memetics research groups worldwide. Government agencies, military branches, private corporations, university projects. Many of them were groups of interests. Many of them were groups of interest, or subdivisions of groups of interest. We were allied with most of them. We were at the spearhead of an anti-memetics coalition which spanned the whole globe and thousands upon thousands of people. None of those groups still exist. The last one ceased to exist sometime in the last 72 hours. 3 years ago, Foundation Anti-Memetics was an organization of more than 4,000 people. Now it's 90. There's no war. We've lost the war. It's over. This is the mopping up operation. The only reason we still exist at all is because we have better amnestic biochemistry than anybody else in the world. Because that's all you can do when you see 3125. Run away and try to forget what you saw. Seek oblivion in chemicals or alcohol or head trauma. And even that can't work every time. It's circling in. We meet it over and over again and we don't realize it. There's no way we can stop ourselves from rediscovering it. We're too damn smart. She points at something on the wall, out of view of the laptop's camera. Bart Hughes' initials are on every page. There's a constellation of dizzyingly complicated schematics. There's a machine we could build. All it would take is 8 years, a lab as big as West Virginia, and all the money in the world. Nothing that the O5 Council would blink at if we went to them. But how do we build that machine without any of us realizing what it's for? It would be like building and launching Apollo 11 without a single engineer deducing that the moon existed. The logistics would be insane, but the secrecy would be well past impossible. Someone would start asking questions, and then it would be over. So what do we do? And Marion at this point is flabbergasted that the other Marion on the laptop recording is so dejected. My team would find them without me. I'm on, and then we start to see, oh yes, important detail here. Marion brings up Adam. I don't remember the last time I slept without having a nightmare about Adam, and I'm starting to forget whether 4987, that's Alistair Gray, is a real thing or just the number that I gave to my life. What happened to you? Who's Adam? I don't know how we survived this. I don't know how we win. We're the last ones in the world. After us, there's nobody. So I'm done. I'm going to walk out of this door and forget who I am, and then I'm going to be you, Marion, and you will have to figure out a way out of this because I can't. She could be heard breathing deeply. Her speech is starting to distort. God, my eyes hurt. I think it's... And then she just trails off. There's the sound of a door opening, and then a piercing pulse of sound and light, which terminates the recording. Wheeler stares at the dark screen for a long minute. She's never seen herself so weak, and it damages her ego to a great deal to see that it's possible. She feels disconnected from what she saw, like it happened in an alternate universe. She feels revulsed and appalled by that version of her, more so to know that that version is still inside her somewhere. It doesn't make sense. I'm looking at all the same facts. What made her give up? What did she know that I don't? Who was Adam? The answer to this question is so obvious and sickening that she instinctively distrusts it. She circles around the answer, probing it, trying to find reasons to reject it, but it's inescapable. Adam was someone she knew when the video was recorded, now completely removed from her memory. Adam was someone the thought of whose safety paralyzed her with fear. Someone in the same headspace, someone she couldn't bear to lose. And then she lost. I won't give too many details about Adam because he's a bit more significant in the second half of this canon. But, yeah, somebody was very important to her, and now she doesn't even remember he exists. How'd the room get built in the first place? Anybody's guess. Wheeler imagines Hughes building it as a proof of concept, followed by a cascading series of lucky chances, which led to it becoming the war room. Someone discovered 3125 at random while sealed in the room. They wrote notes to themselves which set up the skeletal external SCP database entry and the containment procedures. Most of the paperwork and computer hardware was left behind by later visitors. It could have happened. But what if there's another room? And this is where Marion's gears start to turn. She realizes there's a big old engineering lab, empty, underneath Site-41. Nobody goes in there. Nobody's entered it. But what if that's where we built our weapon? She turns to look at the airlock, running the numbers in her head. Basically, she realizes there's only one other possible place that they could try to even attempt to make a dent in this thing, to try to make a weapon powerful enough to stop this thing. And it's in Site-41. And she's doing the math in her head of how long will it take for me to come down to this chamber again? It'll be too late. If I leave this room now, I'll never be back. The plan I have now is the best plan there's ever going to be. We're the last ones in the world. After us, there's nobody. Basically, coming to the conclusion that this is worth the risk. That it'll be too long before she comes back down. This plan that she's concocted right now is the best there's ever going to be. She has to try to make her way to Site-41. Paul Kim is there. We need to check you for notes. She's sucking down lungfuls of air. Just need to breathe. Be okay in a second. Might have inhaled some. So she, despite all the warnings, elects to hold her breath for 3 minutes and not inhale any of the amnestic gas. And remember all of it. And make herself vulnerable to this thing. Kim looks confused and worried for a second. Then they replace him. Now that, I think, is the most chilling line in this article, because they is presumably 3125. The idea that this thing can just... You're on in the background? Good. Good to see you, Jim. Then they replace him. You shouldn't be able to remember anything. What did you do? She suddenly becomes acutely aware that Kim has her effectively cornered. Disliking this configuration for reasons which she's only gradually putting back together, she levers herself up to one shoulder and tries to stand. Kim puts a hand on her shoulder and pushes her back down. You look terrible, he says. There's something in front of your neck. Do you see that? He points at her throat, then taps the same spot on his own. What? On your neck. I thought you've been infected by whatever was in there. We need to act quickly. He reaches for his keyring and unthreads a Swiss Army knife and unfolds a short, gleaming blade. He does this in such a methodical, ordinary way that Wheeler almost forgets to react when he leans down towards her to cut her throat. Almost. She grips his wrist. They're locked like that for a moment, a tableau. She looks into Paul Kim's eye, but it isn't his eye anymore. She squints, wondering if she's making eye contact with anything but a hole in space. She already feels the force bearing down on her own skull, trying to drill into it, but she knows its shape, and that means she can hold out, maybe for a few minutes. She had hoped, prayed, that Kim would not succumb so quickly, and in a crazed little way she thought there would at least be a sign, a theatrical doubling over as his mind was wrenched out of its socket. Kim's wrist spasms as he tries to lunge with the knife. Wheeler parries, and its tip glances off the airlock interior wall with a screech. They scuffle for an awkward second, then she boots Kim in the stomach with both feet, sending him sprawling in the antechamber. She launches out of the airlock, dives over him, and sprints away from the containment unit. She feels 3125 following her as she runs, like a spotlight. She hears a crash in another part of the site as the first piece of ceiling caves in. So to summarize, 3125 is the thing that's connecting all anti-memes. If anyone perceives it with the intent to try to stop it, they're as good as dead. They're wiped from existence and nobody remembers they exist, as well as anybody who thinks like them. many anti-memetics divisions with the SCP Foundation, within the Army, within other organizations, have researched anti-memes, stumbled upon this thing, and been erased. As Marion said in the video that she left for herself, there used to be thousands of people, sorry, that was loud, there used to be thousands of people working on anti-memetics in the Foundation. Now there are 90. Because each time they get further and further along, they find this thing, and they're obliterated. She realizes there's one other facility that might have the capability of housing a weapon that could defeat this thing. But it's in another facility. She decides it's going to be too long before I'm back down here, and I would have to have my memory erased, and other people would come down and not be able to figure this out as quickly as I would. I have to hold my breath, not inhale any of the antimemetic gas, and then just hope I can outrun this thing while I get to Site 41 and try to turn on this weapon. And as you can see, it didn't take long for 3125 to catch on, take over Paul Kim, just completely take over his brain, and start trying to stop her. And that's where we leave off with this article. Things are grim. Things are not looking particularly ideal for Ms. Wheeler. But, you know, anything's possible, I guess. It's just, it has the perfect camouflage. It can take over people's minds, it can wipe people from existence. How do you stop something when as soon as you find out there's something to stop, it stops you first? It's a time. It's, yeah. 3125 is one of the most powerful and dangerous entities within the wider SCP canon, in my humble opinion. And we will find out if Marion's able to defeat it in next week's article, which is, of course, the very last article in the Anti-Memetics Division Hub, that being your last first day. This is the very last one. We have made it. One more article, and we have finished the first section of the Anti-Memetics Division, and I think we'll probably move on to some other stuff. To be clear, there is another series of Anti-Memetics Division articles, but yeah, there is no Anti-Memetics Division is what we're reading, but then there's also Interlude and 55555, which is a sequel to There Is No Anti-Memetics Division. But that is much longer, much more conceptual. We're not going to go there quite yet. So yeah. But yes, next week, read, let me post the link in the chat, read Your Last First Day by qntm, and we will, we'll finish up There Is No Anti-Memetics Division next week. Next Saturday. We'll be back to Saturday, probably. Again, just started my job. Can't make any promises about scheduling. We'll figure it out. But yes, there you go. That's going to do it. Yeah. Very close. It's been fun going through this series again. I forgot how much I enjoy it. I love anti-memetics as a concept. It's so weird and trippy and conceptual. I think qntm did a great job of fully realizing something that is impossible, but making it grounded enough that it feels real. So yeah. I'll see you guys next time to discuss Your Last First Day and do sort of a wrap-up of the whole Anti-Memetics Division. So yeah,